Hey guys, what's up? I'm Bob from World 5 List, and I'm here to tell you about some unfortunate surprises, deadly disasters, and 8 of the craziest things that ever happened in an Airbnb. Number 8. Not how I left it. Now, for those who don't know, let's get this out of the way. Airbnb is a service that allows people to rent out their homes, rooms, cottages, apartments, and other kind of housing facilities to other people for a short amount of time. It's perfectly legal, in most cases. And ever since its arrival in 2008, it's gotten a reputation for being a great service. However, as in all things, there are horror stories, and one that's happened frequently are the tenants who don't respect the people who lend them their homes. To put it bluntly, there have been tenants who have used and abused the houses and spaces they've stayed in so much that it can only be referred to as ransacking. This would happen in 2011, and honestly was the first of its kind for the service. A host, the person who owned the space in question, noted that the tenant destroyed entire parts of the home and actually robbed her of very valuable items, including cash, and who would leave cash laying around for a stranger, jewelry, and things that she had locked away. And I'm not even going to mention what was in the bathroom. You can use your imagination there. Thankfully, Airbnb took charge, agreeing to help the woman however they could, which included actually getting her a new place to live. Now, just imagine how badly the guy destroyed the home. It's really going above and beyond the call. Furthermore, they would reimburse her for all of her stolen items. Thankfully, Airbnb decided to try and make sure this didn't happen again, implementing new rules to try and prevent these kind of thefts and destruction. There have also been other cases of ransacking, but none to the extent of this one, as of yet. Number 7. Bad dog. For Mike Silverman, he was a regular for Airbnb and a poster boy of how good the service is. That is, until he booked a room in Argentina. That's when he spent the first night in the rented apartment with no issues, but then woke up in the morning and found himself staring at a massive Rottweiler. Anyone who owns that kind of dog knows they're not to be trifled with. Trying to show that he was friendly, Mike wanted to pet the dog and was immediately bitten, and pretty badly, finding himself with a massive gash on his arm from the bite, and then had to be taken to the hospital. And because this was Argentina, he had to pay cash for the bill. Sadly, however, this was one time that Airbnb decided to not be so kind and denied his claim to be covered for the bill, as it was clearly the fault of the host. But in their eyes, because the house he rented was in Argentina, their coverage didn't extend to them. Wanting to set things right, Mike then went to the New York Times, who was going to write an article for the incident. Only then did Mike get paid for his medical bills. Number 6. Why are you still here? We've all had guests that have overstayed their welcome in one form or another, but with Airbnb, there's a contract that's signed, stating how long you're supposed to be there. So if you agree to 2 weeks, you're required to leave after that 2 weeks, or else. However, as is human nature, people have found ways to subvert the system, including several people who have invoked state laws to not just remain at the places, but also get paid for leaving. So how is that possible? Well, in California, there's a state law that says that eviction after 30 days can cost the host about $1,700 so that the tenant can find a new place to live. The first case of this was when 2 brothers rented a house for 6 weeks in Palm Springs, and when the host family returned, they then invoked the law, which is pretty clever, huh? Unfortunately for them, the family and Airbnb would fight back, and the 2 eventually left without a dime, and their story was plastered all over the news. They claim that they'll try this again, but time will tell. It also should be noted that legal action was required, and Airbnb covered all of the costs for the family. Number 5. The bed scam. But first, if you're new here, be sure you're subscribed. I want to bring you more awesome videos like this one in the future, and I can't do that if you don't know about them. Now, as noted earlier, people of Earth love to find ways to scam the system, and you have to admit that sometimes it's pretty clever. For one Airbnb host, he decided to make the most out of his money, making opportunity by bringing multiple people into the apartment via different contracts. Let me explain. He put up 24 different beds into an apartment room, which is illegal, not just by Airbnb standards, but also housing violations for just about every state. However, he didn't care, and then he put a contract for every bed in that room at $35 a night and a 30-day minimum stay per the contract. And when it was all over, the guy was raking in a hefty $1,050 per contract per bed, to be precise. And this guy loved scamming people over and over and over again. Eventually, Airbnb got wise and banned him from using the service. However, he countered and kept doing the gag on other sites. Thankfully for everyone, he's now facing lawsuits for his actions, and hopefully will be shut down for good because of it. Number 4. Bomb. Although Airbnb is popular, there's always a question of trust, not just about the host, but also of the tenants who will be staying in the place that you own. Now, as I've shown you, that trust isn't always rewarded, and then there are tenants who are really taking it too far, like building a bomb. The tenant's name was Michael DeBrown, and he rented a single room in Chicago in 2017. Almost immediately, his host, Mike Duckworth, began noticing some weird things about DeBrown. For example, he didn't like that there wasn't a lock on the door of his room, which, to be fair, is honestly a good request given the situation. But then things got even more strange. DeBrown began asking dangerous questions, like how to score drugs, and eventually just straight up left. Feeling that something was wrong, Duckworth carefully went through the client's room and found things that shocked him, not the least of which were wiring, powders, and other things that scared him to the core. He then called in the police, and after carefully searching the room, they found a 10-inch pipe bomb. And after removing the bomb, DeBrown would be tracked down and arrested. Number 3. A felonious host. As with any reasonable job, or at the very least one that requires a certain amount of trust among client and host, a background check on a person is necessary. After all, you need to know who it is that's asking to do certain things. Airbnb does this for their hosts, and if they find a dark past, they reject the application. However, they have let a few slip through despite their shady histories. Take, for example, a man by the name of Zamir Azam, who posted a listing for a house that was available. He lived in the basement of the space and had room available for others. A tourist by the name of Carol decided to rent it, trusting Airbnb as a service. She was told by Zamir there would be one other person living in the house with her, and that it would be a woman, which she was fine with. Unfortunately for Carol, he lied, and he lied big time. For it was not a woman, it was 7 other male men. Worse, these males were anything but gentlemen, and she eventually fled the house. As if that wasn't bad enough, when the story broke out, it was revealed that Zamir had spent 10 years in prison after kidnapping and beating the mother of his child. Number 2. A dead host. Now, to be clear, no, the host didn't die in the house that was being rented. However, in one case in Brooklyn, New York, he did die during the stay of a couple. 2 friends, Jordan and Connor, had rented the place in New York, and everything was fine and legit until one day they decided to do some more research on their host. And that's when Connor found a lot of people sending kind words and thoughts like, "Hang in there." Eventually, about midway through their stay in the apartment, the host passed away. What's even worse is that he had died via an overdose and was pulled off of life support. Just try to imagine that, if you will. You're in a place that's not your own, surrounded by a plethora of items that belong to a person who's now dead. And the most important thing, due to your contract, you have to stay there for a few more weeks. Both Jordan and Connor did make it through, but seeing pictures of their now dead host was apparently very unnerving, and I don't really blame them for feeling that way. Number 1. Quit monkeying around. Now, as I noted in a previous entry, Airbnb isn't just a local service in a single country, it's one that's global, and as such, you have to be careful what you do, especially when renting in a rather exotic location, like South Africa. Well, the Cave family rented a house in Cape Town within the country, and were having a wonderful time, until they decided they really needed to air out the house. And that's when they opened the patio door and left it open. You can see where this is going. If you guessed baboons came in and invaded the space, you'd be correct. A total of 7 baboons entered into the rented home and began an hour-long party, eating food, throwing things around, and relieving themselves once they were full. Thankfully, these particular baboons weren't aggressive, because many are, believe me. And in fact, they were so non-aggressive that the head of the Cave family actually filmed some of them in action. Eventually, the police would be called in and got the baboons out of the house, temporarily, because they came back and had another party that consisted of drinking bubble soap and crashing the house's roof. The lesson here, be mindful of what lives around the place that you're staying at, especially if it's in a country you're not familiar with. Thanks for watching. What did you think about these Airbnb disasters? Have you ever had something happen during your stay in an Airbnb? Let me know about it in the comments below. Be sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time on World 5.